there. Ah, there it is. Hey, John.
Thank
So,
you so much.
congratulations. Congratulations. So, the leader of with the Trefethen family, we have a gentleman who has a lot of experience in the food and wine business as a consumer, and that is Michael Covarrubias. Michael is the chairman of TMG Partners, a Bay Area real estate development firm, and a former chairman of the Bay Area Council. Michael, I look forward to this.
Thank you, Alex. Well, I don't know how many of you hear more than one of me at this moment, but hopefully just one. And I got to say, in the year of COVID, I cannot imagine a more appropriate awardee than a winemaking family, since everybody has tripled their consumption this year. But yeah, I like to congratulate the family, John, Janet, Lorenzo, and Haley, your extended family. You've received a lot of awards around the world for your wine and your great product. And now you're part of the Bay Area Council's Business Hall of Fame. So Janet, let's start with you. What do you see as the most proud moment in your storied history?
Oh my goodness. I'd say this has got to be one of them right now, right? Too bad Katie and Jean aren't here to celebrate with us. But you know, it's really a thrill. And I think that when John and I started the winery in '73, we never dreamed we would be here receiving this recognition. And it means so much to the four of us. As a matter of fact, when we started the winery, there were fewer than 25 wineries here, and everybody thought we were absolutely nuts and crazy to be doing that because there was no wine industry. And similarly, there was no culinary industry. Napa Valley was a culinary desert. There wasn't a ray of hope or light on the horizon. Americans were not aware of the treasure that we all have, that we carry around, and that's our palates. It has been exciting and rewarding to play a small role in helping people find the jewel of taste that we all have. Food and wine can bring such pleasure and such joy. In the early '70s, you did not see many women in the wine business. I am pleased I was able to help open a few doors there. In the beginning, John and I made commitments to grow the best grapes we possibly could exclusively from and make the best wines possible from those grapes that would reflect their heritage, their soil, and their place. We vowed also to take care of our employees as an extension of our family and to conduct our business with integrity. We promise to sustain our ground, to be good stewards of the land and all it embraces. Today, it is with pride and joy that both Haley and Lorenzo have embraced these responsibilities and are committed to their continuance. Trefethen's future shines bright.
Well said, thank you. So Haley, you're still on mute, so don't forget to go off of that. But I want to ask you a simple question regarding changes. So other than we've had droughts, wildfires, and pandemics, what are the biggest changes you've seen in the winemaking business, and how are you see it reflected in the quality of your wines?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, in our 50-year history, we've definitely seen winemaking styles change. However, I think where we are right now is in a fantastic place. The market right now is in favor of wines that have some nuance and are reflective of where they're grown. And that for us couldn't be more perfect, because that has been what we've stood by since the very beginning. We, as Mom mentioned, we're an all-estate winery, meaning that our team has grown every single grape, has cared for every vine on our property that's gone into our wines. We're dedicated to the vineyard, this place. This is what drives us. And so has winemaking changed in our 50 years? Yes. And has ours? A little bit. But our philosophy has remained steadfast. You know, as we learn more about our vineyard each year, every single decision that we make becomes more detailed. And so what we do in the winemaking process is we adapt what we do in the to amplify the voice of the vineyard in the glass. That is our goal. And when we hit it right, it feels really good. And we've had a few vintages recently where we felt we nailed it. And this year has brought us a little bit more joy, some bright spots in 2020. And that would be that at the largest world competition, wine competition in the world, the Decanter World Wine Awards, where over 16,000 wines are tasted by the best palates in the industry. Both our Chardonnay and our Cabernet finished in the top 1%, being the leading wines from North America. And so, this is definitely, it's great when the market decides that, agrees what we're doing is the right thing. So
yeah, that's got to be amazingly rewarding. John, let's talk about philanthropy and education. Obviously, that's been a big part of the family tradition. You serve on boards, all of you do. You raise money, you host benefits for multiple nonprofits and universities and foundations and endowments. So what role does philanthropy play as being a regional leader as well? And has that changed, do you think, during the pandemic?
Michael, thank you. And Bay Area Council, we are honored and thank you. As you've seen from the video, my mom and dad were the prime catalysts for support of Bay Area institutions in their time. My father was relentless on the telephone. When our family moved to Napa, our focus changed. A little story. My academic career in viticulture and enology was limited to one class at the Napa Community College and an infamous 3-day course for new winery families at Davis. The Napa class was held in a World War II military Quonset hut with little heat and no cooling. There was no industry infrastructure. I was able to take a page from my dad's role and gather a group to build the Trefethen Viticultural Center. Later, I was able to mold the industry to build a teaching winery to go along with it. Napa College is now the largest winemaking school by student count in the world. This is just one example of our belief that education is the foundation of a healthy, prosperous, and sustainable community. When the pandemic hit, we made a decision to go on the offensive. We would harvest, we would invest and believe in our people and our brand, knowing that with their help, we could not only survive, but thrive. It has been a long 7 months, but every single employee is still fully employed and contributing to their community. We have 150 families, we call them, working with us. We have also kept everyone safe in a workplace, in an agricultural workplace that is difficult, so that we've had no workplace virus transmissions at all. There may be a moral imperative to invest in your community, but the leadership shown in that work endears your company into the fabric of your community. That is full of rewards for both you and your company.
Well, that's well said. Thank you. So, Lorenzo, you get the softball. What's on the horizon for the Trefethen family?
Thanks, Michael. The really lovely video that you all put together showed, we are a family with deep roots. And it is these deep roots that allow us to grow tall enough to peer over that horizon. And so to honor our heritage, we must push forward. We were pioneers in the Napa Valley after all, and that trailblazing spirit that drove my parents and grandparents animates us today. We may be one of the oldest wineries in Napa Valley. We are also one of the most innovative. Sometimes our experiments lead to something truly groundbreaking, like our Dragon's Tooth Red Blend, unlike any other wine, or our new culinary experiences, where we're extending our estate-grown approach from wine to food, sourcing more and more ingredients from our own gardens, just like Chef Keller does for his restaurants. My family's already talked about our commitment to this special place and the people who work here. That is our foundation. Our curiosity and the value we place on learning is what propels us to make every vintage better than the last. Recently, the future of our family was made quite tangible. 2020 has presented more than its fair share of challenges, but it also delivered 2 little bundles of joy. There they are. My daughter on the right, Zora, was born in the midst of San Francisco's lockdown, and Haley's son, Gus, on the left, was born just 10 days later, which is both weird and wonderful at the same time. So this is the beginning of our 4th generation, and they definitely have inherited the curiosity gene. They are both little explorers and are keeping us all busy and entertained. And so, since it is 11 in the morning and our palates are at their best, we'd like to end with a toast. Michael, I hope you'll join us.
I was not hard to twist my arm.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for this great honor. Here's to a bright future for all of our communities, this region, our country, and our planet. May we find the best in each other and come together following the example of all the honorees today. For it is together, and only together, where we make progress. Cheers.
Terrific.
Cheers.
Congratulations again.
Thank you.
All right, we'll send it back.
Drink the glass, Michael.
Working. Oh, I'm assuming we went back, but one never knows in this world.
Smiling just in case anyone's looking.
Yeah, don't do anything bad. So, I don't know how this thing works. I assume we're done.
Where is the feed?
Children. And she is a proud San Franciscan. To introduce our next speaker, please welcome Jim Wunderman, the president of the Bay Area Council.
Thank you, Alex. I'm very excited to introduce our next speaker, and I do mean speaker. She's been called the most powerful woman in American politics in a career that has spanned more than 40 years. President Barack Obama called her an extraordinary leader for the American people. She was the first woman to be elected Speaker of the House of Representatives in 2007. Boy, seems like yesterday. And the only person in more than 60 years to be reelected Speaker after losing the position. She's the architect of the historical Affordable Care Act, along with numerous other landmark legislation to benefit working families, the environment, consumers, and the rights of women and minorities. And all that, and she's also a mother, a wife, and a grandmother. And sometimes she's a thorn in the side of just a few Republicans, and once in a while, even a few Democrats. I've known Nancy Pelosi for most of those 40 years when she was the host of the Democratic Convention host committee back in 1984 when I worked for Dianne Feinstein. That's when we met. And what an amazing career and what incredible leadership you've provided to the city of San Francisco, our state, and this country. It is my distinct honor to introduce Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Kaiser Permanente Chairman and CEO Greg Adams, who will be leading today's conversation. Welcome, Greg and Speaker Pelosi.
Thank you, Jim. Welcome, Speaker. It's great to see you. And thank you for taking the time to join us I know you've got such a busy agenda, so thank you for taking the time. You know, I think we'll just jump right in if you're good with that. I mean, Jim mentioned that you've been Speaker since 2007. You made history. You've been the highest ranking woman in government. And this month, Kamala Harris made history by becoming the first female vice president-elect. So a good question here for you. What is it about the Bay Area women make them such exceptional leaders, the two of you now becoming the most powerful women leaders in our government?
Well, thank you very much, Greg. Before I answer your question, may I say how honored I am to be with all of you, to congratulate your honorees, Dr. Susan Desmond-Hellmann. I'm a big fan of hers, and I know she's a big fan of the San Francisco Giants. She's a sports fan, so I'm glad she's back in the area, and hopefully soon we can all go out to the ball game. To Bernard Tyson, your predecessor, Greg, we miss him so much. We were all shocked to get the news of his passing, but he made such a difference. We all respect and admired him and what he did, not only for Kaiser Permanente, but as a part of our community. And I understand that Denise accepted his honor earlier, and we love her so much. And I pray for their family all the time. And the Trefethen family, well, Alex knows that we pass the Trefethen family from time to time up in Napa. And every time I go by and I see that on the road, I think, what a wonderful family. Obviously a beautiful success in the wine business, but always doing everything beautifully, excellently. Their commitment to education in the East Bay, Mills, Haas School of Business, the UCSF, science and education, so many areas of excellence. Wonderful that they're part of the Hall of Fame awards. And so to Susan, to Denise, for Bernard, and to the Trefethen family, congratulations for this meaningful, at the 25th anniversary of the Bay Area Business Hall of Fame. To get the invitation from Al Maron to be with you is a great compliment. When he called me to say that you were having this, I thought he was going to say, can you get me somebody? And I said, no, I want you to come. I'm very honored to be with all of you. So again, let's salute Chair Mary Huss and the Bay Area Council for all the leadership that you've provided. And yes, Jim Wonderman, I've known him for many years, admired his leadership in the public sector, the private sector, the nonprofit sector. He knows all of the connections. So you're saying, well, let me just say, are we thrilled, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, are we thrilled that Kamala is now the Vice President of the United States? Don't make me cry. It just brings tears to my eyes. I would say, when you ask why so many women, at Barbara Boxer, Dianne Feinstein, this goes on, and now the next generation, Betty Yee, Malia Cohen, Fiona Ma, Eleni, all these people. Actually, Dianne Feinstein started a lot of this. When she became mayor, people then realized that a woman could be mayor, and that opened a lot of doors. In our case, Sala Burton, a woman member of Congress, too many women having that capacity to do it, and she did. So it was women promoting women that I think were very much a part of what happened in the Bay Area. And now we can just celebrate that we have not only a woman, an African-American woman, an Asian-American woman, a Bay Area woman as Vice President of the United States. It's pretty exciting.
Thank you. And I should say a woman born at Kaiser Permanente, Oakland. So we're very excited.
Oh, wow. I mean, we have so many. Zoe Lofgren, Anna Esch, Barbara Lee, there's a full array of women leaders. I don't know how many are born at Kaiser Permanente, but all supportive of you.
So let me, thank you, Speaker. We're all kind of dealing with in 2020 the spotlight that's been placed on racial inequities and injustices in our country. At Kaiser Permanente, we've chosen to really make equity, diversity, and inclusion a greater priority. We're actually saying that we will raise equity and inclusion to the same level that we have, and that we honor safety and quality in our organization. So as we think about where we are today and the challenges that we face, what are your perspectives on how we are addressing these issues in society? And in particular, if you could, what is it that you think we as corporate leaders could do together to advance equity, diversity, inclusion as we go forward?
Well, thank you. Thank you, Greg, for that question. I have this conversation quite frequently with Alex. what am I calling, Chairman Maron, who cares so much. It comes from a family with a great civic sense of responsibility, and the success that their family has had, the American dream they want for other people, and they see the possibilities in the private sector to lift that up, and the possibilities. So Alex, thank you. Let me just say, for being an intellectual resource, but also a very candid, shall we say, in friendship, candor is very important. So thank you, Alex, for always being on point with the question that Greg just asked. The issue is about justice. Justice. If there's one word, it's justice. It's economic justice. It's justice in healthcare. It's environmental justice. It's justice in the court system. And that, the sense of justice makes all the difference. So when we put legislation together, working together, public, private, nonprofit ideas, we have to remember, what does this mean to the people? It isn't, our big fight, just not to get political, but our big fight is we're not trickle down, we're bubble up. And the grievances that we have to redress about lack of opportunity for so many in our society has not been a good thing for our society. The better people do, the better everybody does. It's not a zero-sum game. If we do well, it's at your expense. No, let's all get in this together. And so I would say that creating an atmosphere, and I think Joe Biden is a great person to lead in this way, because he's not, he's the man. He's not going to be pulled by this or pulled by that. He knows his purpose. He knows his why. He knows that in order to get things done for people, it's not just about relentless, persistent, dissatisfied advocacy, which is important, but it's also advocacy for unity. Unity. But we do not serve our country well if we think that it's all trickle down. It has to be. Now, an economic plan that builds the infrastructure of America with workforce development, to the Trefethens and their commitment to education. It's about education, 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 the great leveler that lets people rise up to play their part. And people are hopeful about what Joe Biden will do in this regard, not in a partisan way, but in a patriotic way. Healthcare. Now, let me just give you one example of what we're living with now. And this relates to what you do. In the COVID crisis, we haven't been able to get a bill because they say, oh, we're for this. They don't go for it. And what they cut out that we can't accommodate, what they cut out is everything that we have in there for communities of color. Everything we have in there for a public health service to do the tracking and the rest. And unless we recognize the strength of and the importance of the public health service in our country, we're all already doing a disservice to everyone in America, because unless we're all safe, none of us is safe when it comes to a virus. And of course, with the vaccine possibilities, the idea that we could use a public health service for the equitable distribution of it. But they just cut it out. They said, that's not COVID related, just cut that out. And the stuff about minorities, people of color, more people dying of COVID, people of color. If you're a Black child, you're 5 times more likely to go to the hospital with COVID. If you're a Hispanic child, 8 times more likely to go to the hospital with COVID than a white child. We really have to recognize the challenge in order to solve it. And again, it comes back to justice. And I think that the private sector and the nonprofit sector and the public sector can more easily work together if there's a shared goal, a vision, and a plan. And Joe Biden's a person with a vision and a plan, but open, confident enough about what he believes in, humble enough to listen. What can we do that makes the biggest difference, that is sustainable and is fair?
Excellent. You know, you mentioned the fractures and kind of the grievances that the pandemic is showing to our nation, really to the world. And people who are black and brown and marginalized. And you kind of, I think you went there and answered this, but is there, what do you think are the prospects of another round of stimulus as COVID-19 continues to rage?
We have to. We absolutely have to. In fact, Chuck Schumer and I today are writing a letter, Leader Schumer and I are writing a letter to Mitch McConnell to say, come back to the table. We have to get this done. We have to get this done. But we can't do it unless we're going to crush the virus. And they've had, I don't know, herd immunity, whatever track they were on, it prevented them from accepting the fact that we had to do mask wearing, social distancing, testing, tracing, treatment, separation, sanitation to stop the spread. But now with a vaccine on the horizon so soon, it should give people a motivation that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. So this is worth the investment of time in case they just didn't feel that way for some reason. And we'll have a president, and people pay attention to the president whose words will weigh a ton in this regard. So we have to, and I'll do it in the next few weeks. Otherwise, we'll have to do it in January. But by then, more people will die. More people, evictions. 17 million children in America food insecure. Millions of their families on the verge of eviction, and couldn't get them to act. But hopefully we will now.
Great. You mentioned the election a couple of times, and lots of thoughts, I'm sure, that everyone has about the election. But as you think about the future and your leadership, what do you see this election meaning for the Democratic caucus?
Well, look, we lost, we still have 4 states that we're fighting in, so we'll see what the number is. I think people have not, if you want to talk politics, I don't think people, the strength and the depth of our election last time. We won 40 seats, 31 of them in Trump districts. Very hard. And as Alex can tell you, I told our friends, I need your help because he wasn't on the ballot. Now he is. These seats are going to be harder to hold than they were to get because Trump is on the ballot. People said, oh no, we're just going to pay attention to the Senate and to the White House. If you've won, you'll win again. I said, don't penalize us for winning. We won a tough fight. And people did help, and so we held the House. We don't know by how many votes. We'll see when these states are finished. But we won the White House. And every one of our races, whether we won or lost them in the House, contributed. More races in Pennsylvania and Michigan and Arizona and Nevada and Georgia contributed to the Electoral College success of Joe Biden, and of course, all over the country to the popular vote. So we think that we had a mandate. We wish we had more members, but having the White House is so big. I mean, to have shared values about all the things that we are talking about. And I say to the Republicans, take back your party. We need a strong Republican Party in this country. Take back your party. This isn't who you are. And they said, well, you have to beat them in the election, then we'll beat you in the election. We'll be back to sort of a normal debate on where we are on the spectrum of the role of government and whether federal or local or whatever it is. But I do hope that the Republican Party will be captured instead from the hijacking that it's going through. That's just my opinion.
Thank you. Speaking of mandate, what would you say are your main priorities as we kind of transition over the next year or so?
Okay, so when we ran in 2018, and it carries over to now, we had a simple message: for the people, lower the cost of healthcare by lowering the cost of prescription drugs and preserving the pre-existing medical condition and the other benefits in that care. For the people, lower healthcare costs, bigger paychecks by building the infrastructure of America in a green, resilient way, good paying jobs, workforce development, equity in some cases of contracts and the rest. So it's not just about jobs, it's about ownership. women, people of color, veterans, rural, Native American, everybody participating. But infrastructure has not been a partisan issue. Because everybody wants infrastructure in a country. It's a different infrastructure than President Eisenhower building the interstate highway, which was a remarkable thing back then. But this is about water, of course, bridges and roads and all that, mass transit, high-speed rail, infrastructure for broadband into rural or underserved urban areas. It's about, did I say water, 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 and water? So important. So it is, I think we will have success with that. In fact, President Trump, every conversation I had with him up until about some months ago was about, among other things, we talked about infrastructure, and until it was time to say how we're going to pay for it, and then he walked out the door. But that's, so with the Affordable Care Act, enhance it. We wait to see what the court will do, but we already have our enhancement and lowering health prescription drug costs. And President Trump said he wanted to do that, so we were looking for areas of agreement: lower health prescription drug costs, build the infrastructure. Our third point, cleaner government, he wasn't interested in. But the first two, which were about jobs and the lives and livelihood of the American people, we thought there was some place to work with him. Well, now we have another start. So the healthcare piece is essential. It's the first, second, and third issue for America's working families, because it's about their economic as well as their health security. Jobs, 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 jobs. You can't lose that four-letter word enough. Clean government. And so those will be the first. But with all of that, we have our top 10, which include those three, but also gun violence protection by passing the background check legislation, protecting our dreamers by doing something on immigration reform. We have an array of other issues like that. LGBTQ, our Equality Act and discrimination against the LGBT community, the Voting Rights Act, passed that, equal pay for equal work. You see, all of it fits under the bigger paychecks, healthier America for all, liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You know, if I could, I'd like to go back for a moment to the pandemic and kind of what we're learning from that. We're in a number of states throughout the country. We've partnered with California and other governors and secretaries of health to really look at, how do we understand, mitigation, containment, suppression, contact tracing. One of the things that's very evident across our country is that our public health system was not prepared for it in terms of resources, in terms of staffing, in terms of technology. As we kind of think about going through this, as we think about preparing for another pandemic, any thoughts on what we need to do and how we could strengthen our public health system?
Well, let me first thank you for what you're doing, what Kaiser Permanente is doing. And I know because you've said it, but I know because I hear it from others. The intellectual resource you are, the example you've set, and the rest. So thank you for that. This is absolutely essential. In other words, we can't be thinking incrementally. We have to be thinking not transformatively. What would our public health system look like if it would meet the needs? Now let's go there and engineer back from that to get that done, but not say we have to do a little more here, a little more there. And that's why we thought COVID would offer us that opportunity in the bill, but they took that language. We still have it in the bill, but they did not agree to go for it, and we'll see what happens in the next negotiation. But let's assume for a moment that we're not going to let that stand in the way of getting a bill now, but as we go forward. I hope that we can continue to consider you an intellectual resource. There are two things that are, to us, seem very obvious from what the experience of our constituents. The public health service must be, what would it be if we had it ideally designed to be? Let's go there. Nothing incremental. Secondly, community health centers. Community health centers carpet the country with community health centers. So there is the facilitation of people coming near to home, culturally appropriate, affordable, and the rest. And that is a big part of, we have that in the COVID bill too, and we have it in our infrastructure bill. We have it almost every place to have more of that. But as we put the pieces together here, we can't be thinking of how it was and go back to, well, it's not back to normal. It's back to something, forward to something, build back better, as Joe Biden says. Moving America forward, as our slogan is. So if, again, we have to listen to healthcare providers. And if I just may say on that, one of the disappointments that in our bill that we couldn't get yet was honoring our heroes, our healthcare workers, our first responders, police and fire, our transportation, sanitation, food workers. They enable us to exist. And yet, because of state and local budgets, which have had serious outlays to pay for the coronavirus and serious revenue loss because of the shutdowns and the rest, really need our help. And they, the soon to not be president anymore has been saying, oh, the governor just squandered the money, you want us to bail him out. No, this is strictly coronavirus centric. What are your bills? What is your revenue loss? That's what we want to help you with. And I say that because I see people say, oh, let's praise our workers, but let's pay them. Over 1 million of them, maybe 1.25 million, growing number, have been fired. And did I add teachers in there? Teachers. Most of the education comes from state and local government. And we have some percentage, under 10%, comes from the federal government that they don't really want to spend in the right way. So that's part of our fight, but not to go too far down that path, just to say, these are the people who are doing the jobs for us. They brought their lives to save lives, and now they're losing their jobs on top of it. Go on unemployment insurance, what savings is that to the taxpayer? But what a loss in services to the community, as well as the economic and the fiscal soundness of our state and local governments, which is important to our national fiscal soundness.
Speaker, I know they're going to kind of drag us both off the stage any minute. We're probably running out of time, but I could talk to you all day. I just want you to know that there are.
I can listen to you all day.
A couple of final questions. One is, I think there is a sense that with the Supreme Court arguments that the ACA may not be under threat going forward. So I'd like your thoughts about, should Congress be thinking about the possibility of a different outcome? And then the final question, and then we'll conclude, Jim and team, is what can we, the Bay Area Council and leaders in the Bay Area, do to support you and to support the transition of leadership?
Well, let me start with that. Again, Alex will know I'm always asking him, what do you think? What do you think? I don't have to ask him. He volunteers, as you probably know. But it is to have advocacy with unity. I sent a letter to my colleagues yesterday. I said there's advocacy that can be dividing, advocacy that can be unifying. So let's find out how we, again, respect opinions, listen, and make our confident and humble. So, but the big challenges, and we have to think way to the future about all of it too. So it's incremental, it's transformative. So the entrepreneurial thinking that you do in the private sector is very refreshing to the legislative process. To think ahead, to take risks, because we are the party of Franklin Roosevelt, and people think of that as an old idea. But Franklin Roosevelt was about persistent, bold experimentation. Persistent, bold experimentation. So it isn't about wedded to an old program. It's about riding on the entrepreneurship of an idea. The other question was
just the ACA. And
ACA. Okay, let me tell you this. And I hope this doesn't take too long for me to tell you this, but should give people hope. Okay, so we watched the ACA. We were pleased with the arguments. We were proud of the case that was made. California was chosen as the prime presenter, but we, the House, were represented by Don Borelli, and we thought he did a great job. So we were pleased. And I thanked Javier Becerra this weekend for what they did as well. The arguments, the comments of the justices, who knows? You know, who knows? But it was better than not having bad comments. But should they decide to go against the Affordable Care Act and not just severability, like the individual mandate, and leave the rest intact, if they were to take away pre-existing condition benefit and all the rest, that would be a big problem for the American people and a big political price to pay, which we don't want them to have to do, because that was part of the, people talk about the 20 million people who are covered by the Affordable Care Act, but we are also talking about the 150 million families that were affected by the increased benefits, including pre-existing condition benefit. You know the benefits, I won't go into that. But let me just tell you this one story. A few years ago, we had this, at Women's History Month, we honored the women of the court, Justice Kagan, Justice Sotomayor, and Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Ruth Bader Ginsburg spoke for the women, and she got up and she told this story about 1876. A woman wanted to argue before the Supreme Court. She was turned down 6 to 3, because she was a woman. That's what they said. She didn't take no for an answer. She went to the Congress, lobbied for 3 years. 1879. Congress passed a law that said if you meet these standards, you can practice before the court, whether you're a man or woman. And then Ruth Bader Ginsburg that day said, that's one of my favorite stories about how the Congress was ahead of the courts in terms of equality and justice for women, etc. Then come forward into this century, and the courts ruled against women in the workplace, in the Lilly Ledbetter case. They ruled against women in the workplace. How could they do such a thing? But they did. And the dissent was written by Ruth Bader Ginsburg. The Ginsburg dissent became the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act in the Congress, which we passed. And it was the first bill signed by President Barack Obama. Again, the Congress being ahead of the court in terms of justice, etc. Now, the reason I mention it is we'll do the same thing for the Affordable Care Act, should they decide to take it down. We already have our enhancements, more things we want, perhaps a public outreach, which I have always wanted. And so we're going to make it better anyway. The question is, do we start from scratch if they take it all down, or do we start from a severability argument, piece of it, and then go from there? But we're ready, and we have the tradition of Congress overturning what the court has done on other occasions. So anyway, there's a lot going on here. We're in transition. We're in lame duck. We're in orientation of our new members, the constant reinvention of America, and we want them to have all the opportunity to go forward into the future, and that's part of our transition here as well. So thank you for the opportunity to spend some time with you. Thank you, Greg. I hope to see you soon when we can see each other. Alex, thank you for the invitation. I'm glad I could see you back there. It's beautiful.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Speaker. I really appreciate your taking time and giving us an update on what's happening in Washington, D.C. Good luck with your agenda. And that concludes our 25th anniversary Bay Area Business Hall of Fame induction ceremony. In the year of despair, I hear a great ray of hope in our program today. Inspiration from Bernard Tyson in his position of leadership, the prospects of biomedical breakthroughs as personified by Susan Desmond-Hellmann, and the example of continuity as exemplified by the Trefethen family. The call for action and transparency by Jay Powell. The prospects for legislative action for family support in America and an infrastructure bill from Speaker Pelosi. These are all notes of hope and prospects for a better 2021. Congratulations to our honorees. Thank you to the Hall of Fame committee and to our speakers and presenters. Special thanks to Rufus Jeffries and the Bay Area Council staff for curating this event. Now, I'll ask you all to exit, but do not leave, because there is some gathering room next, and click in there and you'll be able to see some of your friends and colleagues at the Bay Area Council. All the best, everybody.
Thank you, Alex. Thank
So
you.
long, Nancy.